few things. One thing is I want to talk about the mass shooting in Maine and what we know about it and what we know what happened in July when the suspect in question actually threatened to take down a army facility. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna talk about that first, and then we're going to go ahead. We're gonna get into um, the Jamison case as well. So stick around, and we'll get right into this. And before we go ahead and get into everything here, I just want to mention you done?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I just want to mention here too, guys, it's always good to check up and make sure that you know who you're hanging out with, who your friends are hanging out with, who your kids are going to go and hang out with, and their parents and all that. So with that being said, Truthfinder is a great way to be able to do that. It's a great way to be able to just check up and have that little bit of peace of mind. I use it all the time just to check up and make sure that, you know what, I know who I'm talking to and making sure that if, I know that, if there's a sexual predator and stuff, that I can keep me and my family safe. So, yeah. So go ahead and feel free to check out Truthfinder. It is in the link. So, okay. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into the Maine shooting and what we know about it. So, man, I mean, I know that there are quite a few people still in the hospital from this, so the shooting number could go up, but it could be the biggest shooting that has taken place here. So at least I think it's 22 people have been killed, and they said it had been 50 had been injured, and according to police, there was a arrest warrant for who the person that they believe that is responsible for all this, and I think that that fugitive is Robert Card. So he's issued. I'll play that in a minute. Sorry. So they've issued on at least 8 counts of murder, and I mean, as victims are still trying to be identified here, at the shooting in Maine on Wednesday night. I mean, it was just Wednesday night, just 8 people at least were killed at the bar and grill. 7 were killed at the Just in Time bowling alley. Well, 3 after being transported to the hospital have died too. Those are just the confirmed people that where their family members have come in and said, yes, that is them. So they still haven't found him. They're trying to find him, the 40-year-old Card. So he so there was he did in July, he went ahead and threatened to shoot up the army base of where he is stationed at. So he's actually a trained armsman. He actually teaches these guys how to do this. So it's kind of terrifying in the fact that, we have someone that is trained to do this, that is supposed to be like on our side fighting for our freedoms and our rights, and is flat out attacking our own people. And it goes to say too that this is a bigger issue with, of course, with mental health and all that as well, because obviously these guys, they go through a lot. I mean, going into this, they automatically, that they're gonna have some sort of PTSD. That's just that's a given. And I feel like too, that's one of the big reasons why, they have the screenings and stuff. Like if you're on current depression medication, ADHD medication, something a mental medication, they actually can deny you from going into the army. And you know what? This might make a great example of this, because you just never know what someone is going to do. I mean, it's the same reason as to why, and I'm not going to fully get into this, but why, if you are transgender and taking those hormones at that time, that you're not allowed um, to be in the army while you're taking like testosterone and stuff, because it messes with you. Like, it messes with you mentally and physically. So yeah, I mean, this I think is just another good example as to how much that they go through. And like, honestly, I personally don't feel like they don't have enough resources. I mean, how many veterans do we see on the streets right now? How many? There's a lot. And like, I've worked in the Medicaid field before, and I can tell you what, a lot of people that go to the VA for their health care, well, actually a lot of them get denied some stuff, and then, or they don't have the resources, or they don't trust the doctors there, which is really, really sad that, we are treating veterans who put their lives on the line like this. This is definitely a bigger issue than just, you know, I mean, obviously, it's a totally bigger issue. Um, Anywho, I kind of just went on a rant there. So, I mean, in this place too, it's in Lewiston, and they said that it's like a close knit community. Um, and you know, someone said, "Oh, the city doesn't deserve this terrible assault on the citizens." Actually, I don't think anyone does. No one does. Be Maine or what's going on in Gaza right now. No one deserves to fear for their lives for this, for just going outside. So, with that being said, I right now I can't believe that he's not caught. But I mean, as far as we know, he might have killed himself somewhere. Who knows? Or he might have. He's gone. One thing that I heard, and if I find a video on this, I'll gladly share it. But I heard that too, that someone was saying that they witnessed, I think it was three. Don't quote me on that because I might be wrong on that. But that three police officers were in that bowling alley using themselves as shields. Okay. And I know we've got this whole defund the police thing going on. And I really think that with the defund the police thing, here's the thing, and here's how I've always taken that. I've always taken that as I've I've recently, like, I don't know. Before I was like, yes, we need to, but in this way. We need to distribute funds to do better training and to um, you know, give more performance views instead of just you've been there longest, so then you get paid more, as well as extensive ongoing training, as well as um, having someone on the staff at all times to deal with mental decisions and stuff like that. That's what defunding the police has meant to me. And I know that's not how a lot of people view it, and a lot of people don't take it that way. They take it as we are just not going to you know, we're just gonna not have police at all, which that obviously doesn't work. We've kind of seen that going around right now. in places that have decided to defund the police, it it's a nightmare. Um, and what I'm saying when I say, like, I feel like too, like when people like come at me and they're like, well, we don't need to defund the police. I don't mean it in get rid of all police officers. And I think if people would step back and actually ask people, what do you mean by defunding the police? Like, what did you mean by that? Because I found a lot of people are like, oh, well, it automatically means that we're gonna have no police officers at all. And that's not how I think about it. I think about it as more of a, when we say we need to defund the police, we need to ref well, I'm gonna put it this way: refund the police, redistribute funds in different areas, redistribute them so that they can be used in more proper ways and more training and like more. I think other people need to come on as the police force, such as more just mentally. Like, I feel like we need to have more mental um stability when it comes to the police force. And I understand flight, fright, or freeze, right? That's something I think though that needs to be taught, especially to police officers before we're just throwing them out in the streets, because that's what we're doing right now. We're short on police officers, so we're just throwing people out in the streets, and that's not good for the community either. I feel like we need to just redistribute it in ways, like have someone that is there that's, a negotiator of sorts to kind of help de-escalate the situation in everyone. Because I feel like, and maybe most police officers do have this, but I feel like, even if you got a partner, you should have a de-escalator with your partner. One of them should be like a de-escalator and be like, hey, like, let's think this through and de-escalate the situation. And like I said, I guess refund the police instead of defund the police. um yeah, anyway, I guess that's a whole another thing too. um okay, so I'm gonna go on here. So of course, so a little bit more about Robert Card. So I'll play that in a minute. um he's been in the U.S. Army Reserve since December 2002. Okay, his rank is sergeant first class, and his job is the supply specialist. He doesn't have any combat deployments, they said, though. So he's never actually been deployed, but still being in that situation and being taught, like, I have to teach these guys how to do X, Y, and Z. And I mean, we won't know what's going through his head unless we actually are able to talk to him. So yeah, and he has those 8 counts right now for murder. And once those 10 are identified, that will go up. But what's crazy to me is that they still allowed him, even in July, even after he threatened to shoot up his own army base, he was still there. And that says something. Like, they were just like, oh, I mean, was it like, this is just my opinion, but was it just like, oh, he's just having a bad day and wants to, kill the whole army base? That's okay. Let's just, we'll deal with it tomorrow. I'm kind of concerned on that one. All right. So I hope they find him. My thought right now is either he really fled or he killed himself. But okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and play a few clips here. One's from ABC News. I'll share it with you guys.
Riley Dumont, who was with her family inside the bowling alley. She says a kids' league was underway when shots rang out. How many shots did you hear fired?
Oh gosh, I would probably say like maybe 4 or 5.
And you said it felt like it went on forever.
Yeah, it felt like it lasted a lifetime.
Riley says her father, Ron Dumont, a retired police officer, leapt into action.
My dad's been a police officer for 40 years, and he literally just went into action in that moment and just kind of corralled us all and made sure we were all safe and that the scene, he was waiting for the cops to walk through the front door, and he put protection in front of us and tables and like a big bench that the kids were hiding behind. I was scooched on the floor with my daughter and my mom and a couple of other kids and parents.
And you are convinced your father helped save people?
Yeah.
What were the sights and the sounds as the gunfire is underway?
I just remember people sobbing and crying, and people around me were not screaming, but like whimpering, and my mom and I were just trying to keep everybody quiet and you know, consoling each other. But I really, like, the sounds that I heard were only closest to me and then the gunshots sound, and that's all I remember hearing.
Okay. That really got to me. Like, that is absolutely awesome that he did that, and that, you know what, I feel like some things happen for a reason, and he probably ended up saving some lives that night, you know. Definitely. So I'm curious, because he's never been into combat at all, that how and why did it take him, like take such a toll on him? Because obviously you can't say that you've been in that situation for 16 years and it didn't do that, and that you wanted to shoot up the army base and that just didn't take a toll on you. I mean, of course it did. And that just goes to show too that we need more like mental help, because that is, I mean, trying to prepare someone to go to war and fight for war and to essentially be okay dying is terrifying. And for a lot of people, they don't have a choice. They feel like that's their only way to, you know, provide for their families and stuff, which, and it really sucks too if you decide that that's not for you, but you can't get out. Because if you decide that you don't want to do it anymore, you can go to jail. It's all right. I want to play one more for you guys.
Another American city shaken by a senseless mass shooting after a gunman in Lewiston, Maine opened fire on a youth night at the town's bowling alley and then a restaurant.
At least 16 people are dead and dozens more were injured. There is an active manhunt right now for the person of interest. He is considered armed and very dangerous. As we come on the air, the shelter-in-place order has expanded, and people are urged to stay inside and lock their doors. Schools in the area are closed this morning.
The gunman stormed a place where families took their children to have fun. He did not stop there, making his way to a second location, the worst mass shooting of the year. Townspeople hid for their lives. Parents shielded their children. Families fled the scene. Some of them got out to reunite with their loved ones. We will hear from survivors this morning. Our team is tracking the latest developments on this tragedy. We begin with Whit Johnson on the scene in Lewiston, Maine. Good morning, Whit.
George, good morning to you. Sadly, we've become all too familiar with these types of tragedies, and here we are again at the scene of what is expected to be the deadliest shooting so far of 2023. At least 16 people killed, and behind me is that crime scene, the street blocked off. And if you go halfway down the street, that's where the bowling alley is that was hosting a youth night for children. That's where this suspect began his killing spree, and now an entire community on edge as that killer, considered armed and dangerous, is still on the run.
2 active shooter locations, all available units.
This morning, a massive manhunt underway for an armed and dangerous killer after a mass shooting in Maine's second largest city.
We have an active shooter. We have multiple injuries.
The first 911 call coming in around 7 p.m. from a local bowling alley hosting a youth night for kids bowling league. Authorities releasing these surveillance images showing the suspected gunman armed with a rifle where he began his killing spree.
Well, we were inside and just normal night of bowling, and out of nowhere he just came in and there was a loud pop. Thought it was a balloon. I had my back turned to the door, and as soon as I turned and saw it was not a balloon, he was holding a weapon, I just booked it down the lane and I slid basically into where the pins are and climbed up in the machine and was on top of the machines for about 10 minutes until the cops got there.
The suspect then traveling about 4 miles to the second shooting scene at a local bar and restaurant.
There are multiple scenes in the city, to include multiple hospitals, a lot of witnesses we're speaking with.
At least 16 people killed and dozens injured.
It's all ages. It was all ages.
Police have identified 40-year-old Rob Card as the person of interest. Sources telling ABC News he has a history of military service and is a firearms instructor, and was treated at a mental health facility over the summer after allegedly saying he was hearing voices and threatened to shoot up a National Guard facility in Saco, Maine.
If people see him, they should not approach Card or make contact with him in any way.
Authorities discovering the suspect's white Subaru around 11:30 p.m., 8 miles from the Lewiston crime scenes. The car seen with the door open and lights on. With the suspected killer on the run, the community placed on lockdown, people told to shelter in place. Overnight, we spoke with Megan Hutchinson and her 10-year-old daughter Zoe, who were at the bowling alley.
When I turned around, I saw the shooter right behind me. He had just come in the door. I don't know if that was just a warning shot or if he actually shot somebody with that one. But between the lanes, there's some swinging doors, like where they keep all the mechanical stuff out back. So we kind of all just ran that way. We barricaded in there, and another parent was in the room with me. She had a phone. She called 911.
Zoe's leg grazed by a bullet. The young girl now unable to comprehend the horrific crime scene she witnessed.
It's just shocking. It's something that you'd think would never happen. I never thought I'd grow up and get a bullet in my leg. Why? Why do people do this? I was more worried about, am I gonna live? Am I gonna make it out of here? What's gonna happen? Are the cops gonna come?
Questions no child should ever have to ask. This community here gripped by fear right now. That lockdown is in place in Lewiston and surrounding communities. People told to stay indoors, lock their doors. Businesses and schools are closed as more than 100 investigators comb the area looking for that suspect. We've also learned that President Biden was briefed on that situation overnight. In fact, he was removed from a state dinner with the Australian Prime Minister so that he could get on the phone and make calls to local officials here in Maine.
Jesus. All ages, All ages were killed. At a youth bowling. A youth bowling center. A 10-year-old had her leg grazed and she's wondering if she's gonna live while she's going bowling. Jesus. So he threatened in July to shoot up the army base that he was an instructor at. He went to a mental hospital over the summer. Why the hell was he let out? Was there I have so many questions on why was he let out? What kind of treatment process did they do? Did they keep up on that? Jesus. And I'm gonna look like a raccoon here in a minute because I'm crying. I have a lot of questions in that aspect. Like, why? From my understanding, I could be wrong, but he went back to the army base and was stationed there still after all this. I could be wrong. Jesus. Claimed he was hearing voices in his head telling him to kill people. And the warning signs are there. They're there. And he did that in July, and now it's October. So obviously, they let him out and stuff. So where was the line? Where was the line that they drew to let him continue to be in the army base and to let him out of the mental hospital? This is why, too, I feel like it is. So there is the red flag law that is in some states. And I've gone into this before, so I'm not going to go fully into it. But basically, in some states, if you feel like someone is going to harm themselves or others, you can call the police, and then they can do a welfare check on them. And if they feel like, yeah, this is a danger, they can hold your gun for you for a while until you get your stuff figured out. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not anti-gun. I'm not saying that either. I'm not anti-gun, but I'm not opposed to, if someone thinks that they're going to harm themselves or others and they tell someone about it, that person can call the cops and be like, hey, I'm worried about this person either taking their lives or someone else's. I don't think that's wrong either. I don't know. All right. Well, let me know what you guys think on this. If I find GoFundMes or anything like that for the families of the victims, I'll definitely link them. But I do think, I feel like this is definitely a bigger issue. It needs to be, spoken to, especially when it comes to people in the army and their mental health and stuff like that. Because what 40-year-old wants to go to a bowling alley and kill children? All right. Well, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Like, subscribe, give me your thoughts on everything. All right. And as always, guys, just